All right, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. We thank Mr. Palmquist for being with us. And now we're going to do something that I am also completely passionate about from a different perspective. And that is maybe the best organization, and which is a horrible thing to say in the beautiful Bronx. In the Bronx, it's the Bronx River Art Center. And first, say hello to my longtime friend, Gail Nathan. Nice to have you with us, Gail.
Hi, Gary. Very
Nice.
nice to be here. Thank you.
And Gail brought along Rachel Klipa, who is an independent curator and worked on this very exciting exhibit, which is up now at the Bronx River Art Center, Among Women, Contemporary Art from Serbia. Gail, why don't you just start and talk about why and how this exhibit came about and why you thought it was appropriate for the beautiful Bronx River Art Center?
So we actually got it from an open call to curators. And Rachel was one of the people who submitted a proposal. And we looked at it and we thought it was very, very interesting. Anybody who has watched the history of this country, particularly its Civil War, knows that one of the big issues there and many places is freedom of women in their society. And particularly now when American women's freedom is being challenged again, which is mind-blowing. After 50 years of us having control of our own bodies, that it's just such a big issue. And this was a show that just snapped into place there in terms of the women. It's all and Rachel can talk about the show and
sure, we're
it's
going to
all
do that.
women.
I just want to establish, and one of the things that's on your agenda, which I know, is to find culturally significant and culturally relatable art that communicates something to the people of the Bronx. Did I just articulate what you are thinking about? I mean,
yes, and in this case, it's to particularly to women. But of course, this is a big issue for all people, all humans, right. And in this case, it doesn't always have to be exactly specific to the people of the Bronx in terms of, whether they're born here, the artists, right. Or whether they're whatever. It's issues that really are meaningful to all people, and this right. in particular, women. And I might just add that it turned out that all the shows that we selected for this year, and I didn't know this, it was serendipitous that we picked, all the shows we picked are all women artists.
Wow. Fascinating.
And that without even trying. A conscious decision.
So,
right.
So let's bring Rachel in. Rachel, talk to me about what artists were selected. Who are they? How did we get them to put it all together and make this exhibit?
Well, I've been focusing on contemporary art from Serbia as a researcher since 2017. My research on the region sort of stems back 10 years now at this point. And the women that I asked to be in this show are women that I either met during my trips to Serbia, women artists that were recommended to me, women whose work I saw in exhibitions while being in Serbia. And I want to be very specific here. This is a very Belgrade-based show because that's where I've been spending the most of my time. So this does not represent all women artists in the country.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, very particular to Belgrade. And they all have very diverse art practices. It was not easy to select the women for this show because there are so many female artists. And I really look at this exhibition as an initial inquiry to look at the contemporary art scene of Belgrade from the perspective of its female artists. And I would hope it could grow in some way and evolve to involve more women artists across the country to even get a more comprehensive view to see what they're saying and how they're approaching art.
I'm always interested in defining and redefining our borough. Talk to me about the nature of taking artwork from across the world and basically interfacing this with what Gail said, that it becomes culturally significant. What have you found here about, putting on a display like that has some, for want of a better term, body and strength and point of view to it?
Well, Gary, I mean, it's been hard, right? There's been a lot of things that I didn't anticipate in terms of being the face of the exhibition because the women aren't
Ah,
based here, right? So this has been a learning curve for me, but I think that people are relating to this show on a lot of different levels. For instance, there's a work by Marina Markovic, which is a sonogram of her empty womb, and you hear the women in her family telling her very directly what her role is as a woman. And I think,
let me just ask that. Now, you say that you hear, so there's an audio component to that?
yeah, there's an
Oh,
audio component, and it's very direct and it's very painful to listen to. And I think of all the things that I've heard as a woman in the United States, maybe not as directly as Marina's female family members are saying, but in very passive aggressive ways. Or Bojana's work, A Queen of Montenegro, which explores how women are not represented in Montenegrin family trees. Obviously, in my family, which is Serbian, we do know who the women are that makes up our family tree. But the invisibility of women in Montenegrin culture, I as a woman have felt invisible many times,
wow.
and I've heard how other women have felt invisible as well. So there's many layers to this show that deal directly with women's issues, but also the isolation of capitalism, because Serbia was once part of Yugoslavia and functioned in a socialist economy,
Hmm.
and now it is a capitalist country, and how people have been dealing with that transition and the
Wow.
isolation that it brings. So there are many different ways that you could enter the space, relate to the work artistically, but socially as well. So
Right.
there's many things to consider.
Gail, this is a very personal work. There are some images of women that are different. Talk to me from a personal point of view, from you as an art uh, um, consumer. When you walk through there, maybe after you put it up before you invited the public in, how did it strike you when, as somebody who looks at artwork of all different types? What effect did it have on you individually?
Well, it's clearly it's a very intense show, and it's a very broad show in the way it touches on very many issues that are not just women's issues, but it's women's perspective on issues. So, for example, um, one of the works in the show is about gentrification. And of course, right? And isn't that a topic for the Bronx? And it shows buildings being torn down um,
Wow.
and raw
And
raw buildings, and here we are in the midst of that issue
sure.
intensely in our borough.
Let's talk about this. So now the show is up. Let's see if I remember off the top of my head, 1087 East Tremont Avenue. Is that what we're talking about? That's where we are.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even look it up, and I didn't have it in my notes. That
And you
just shows you.
remember?
I've been there enough to know. And so, how often the show is open every day? Let's get that, and then let's put this show in context with other stuff that the Bronx River Arts Center is doing.
Sure. The show is up through February 27th, and it's open from Tuesday through Friday at 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And
Okay.
then it's open on Saturday from noon to 5.
Great. I think about this show and what we've already talked about. I think about a school group coming by, parents, specifically with daughters, but certainly sons need to be educated as well. Parents saying, "Hey, here's something interesting," letting the kids see it and all that kind of stuff. I think that's just so important. Before we run out of time, Gail, just what do you got coming up? You got a lot of stuff. You said, what we have this year. You've got it all laid out, right? You're all ready to go.
Right. Well, again, as I said, we have all our exhibitions are of women artists and curated by women, except for one is curated by a man. But they come up. We have a video production coming up right immediately after the show comes down. We have an incredible show of Latinx women from all over the country, curated by Nicholas Duvet Esteba, and he's a Bronx-based curator.
Gail, we're almost out of time, so you have that. You also
and I have a performance coming
performance.
up
That's what I was going to ask you.
on the end of February, on the 26th or 27th. And it's a wonderful jazz pianist woman. And for Black History Month, a Black artist.
So BRAC.org, is that BronxRiverArtCenter.org? What is the website?
BronxRiverArt.org.
BronxRiverArt.org. Rachel, we'll give you about 30 seconds. What are you working on next?
The next project I'm working on is actually another project coming out of Serbia. It's called Fotodocumenti. It's not my project. I'm working with two curators, Miroslav Karic and Sleđana Petrović-Varagić. We'll be bringing that show to Pittsburgh next year. So I'm actually really excited to work with them on that.
Listen, Rachel, I know this is the first time you've been through the Bronx. I hope you'll come back again and show more and more stuff. This is, culture. That's how we're going to save our borough. So Gail Nathan, nice to see you again, and always a pleasure to have you. And Rachel Klipa, we appreciate you and all the great work, and thanks for bringing your stuff to the Bronx. We want it. We want to see it. We want to love it. And we got a great exhibition hall for you right there on East Tremont Avenue. Anyway, folks, that'll be it for this evening. It is been a great show. Just meeting and talking to some new people and also an old friend. And guess what's going to happen? Just guess. You're right. We'll be back next week. Good night.